everyone, and welcome back to another tutorial. In this video we are going to be looking at the cabbage patch stitch. So this stitch is a 2-row repeat that can be made in a really light yarn to give a lacy effect, or a really chunky yarn to give a nice textured effect. So it is formed of these clusters and then this crisscrossing detail. So once you've got those stitches down, you can create away. I've created this scarf pattern, which was a swatch that I kept going and going on, so stay to the end of the video. I'm going to give you the measurements for this, but for now we're going to jump straight into the tutorial. So to get started today, we're going to create our foundation chain. Now the foundation chain for this stitch is worked in multiples of 4 plus 7. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I have chained 31. If you'd like it bigger or smaller, then you can adjust accordingly. So to get started, we are going to do a double crochet. In the UK this is known as a treble crochet, but I work in US terms, so I'm going to be using US terms throughout this video. So we want to start in the 4th chain from the hook. So we don't count the chain on our hook and we count down 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we're going to be doing a double crochet into that space there. And then we want to create 4 more double crochets into that same space. Once we've created those 4, you should have a little cluster that looks something like this. We're going to skip the next 2 chains and work directly into that 3rd chain, and we're just going to do exactly the same thing, a cluster of 4 double crochets. So skip the next 2 chains, 1 and 2, and work straight into that 3rd chain with a cluster of 4 double crochet. Three and 4. Now don't worry if these bottom chains get a bit stretched. As you work along the row, they will come together and look a little something like this, which is the look that we are going for. So I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to meet you back at the end of your chain. So to continue, we're going to work in the same way, skip 2 chains, and in that 3rd chain do a cluster of 4. Skip 2, and in the 3rd one a cluster of 4. And I'm going to meet you back when you have 2 chains left at the end of your row. So once this row is complete, our work should be looking a little bit something like this. Don't worry if it's a bit curly, it will straighten out as we build. I did say previously that you'd have 2 chain spaces left, but you should have 3, so that was my mistake, sorry. So we're going to work into a double crochet into that 3rd chain, so the last chain on the row. So we'll insert our hook there and create a double crochet, and then we're going to move on to the next row by chaining 3 and turning our work. So this row is our crisscross stitch, so the whole pattern is a 2-row repeat, so you'll be creating your cluster pattern and then your crisscross pattern, and that is all you will repeat throughout. So now we're going to start working, looking at our clusters. So each cluster that we've made, we're going to work into. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 chain spaces at the top of each cluster. So if you hold your work a little something like this and pull it apart, you'll be able to see those stitches from above. The first stitch is a double crochet, and it's going to go all the way over here in this 4th chain on the top of our cluster. Okay, so insert your hook, make a double crochet, and then we're going to chain 2, so nice easy bit, and then we're going to create another double crochet, but this time we're going to put it into the 1st chain or stitch of our cluster. So if we look at our cluster here, the 1st one is here, or you can count back if this is 4, 3, 2 and 1, and you put it in number 1 there. So yarn over and insert. Take the yarn from behind, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and it will look a little something like this with your stitches crossed over each other. So we're going to go through that 1 or 2 more times, and then I'm going to let you carry on to the end of the row. So looking at our next cluster here, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we are going to insert into that 4th stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2 to make that double crochet, chain 2, and then we're going to create another double crochet, counting back 4, 3, 2, 1 into the first stitch of this cluster. I'm going to do it one more time with you guys again, so that you can just have a little bit of an example, and then I'll leave you to pause the video and meet me back at the end. So working into our next cluster, which is here, pulling our stitches apart, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we're going to place a double crochet into that 4th chain, a chain 2, you'll see why the chain 2s are important in the next row, and then back into that first stitch of the cluster for another double crochet. Okay, and that's creating that crisscross pattern here. So if you pull your stitches up a bit, you'll be able to see where they cross over. Okay, so I will leave you to pause and rewind the video if you need to, and I'll meet you back once we have completed this last cluster here, so we can move on to our next row and start again. So once we have completed all of our crisscrossy stitch row 2, we are going to move on to our next row. We need to put a double crochet into the end of this row to keep our edges straight, just like we did on this side here. We worked into this side, which looks like the end stitch. If you can see here, this was our stitch that we worked into. We actually need to put a double crochet into the next stitch along, which is this one here, which looks like it's on the side, but is actually part of this row if we pull it up. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to put my hook in there. I'm going to do one side at a time. Oh, it went through both. That's it. And then a double crochet. And then just like before, to turn the row, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and turn our work. Now we're going to be working our cluster row again. So to work our clusters just like before and to keep them in the same place, we actually need to work into those chain 2 spaces that we created when we created our crisscrosses. So you can see them here. So we're just going to put 4 double crochets just like before, straight into those chain 2 spaces all the way to the end of the row. So this is a nice easy row, but it does burn yarn, so be careful. And if you work this, so I didn't show you where I went in then, so I did 4 in here, and then I went straight into my next chain 2 space. I've already worked 1, so I'm going to work 3 more in here, and if you pull your work up just like this, you'll be able to see those peaks almost, and that is your chain 2 spaces that you need to be working into. And I'll meet you back at the end of the row after doing this one, and I'll show you where to insert on this one, and then we can finish the row and turn. Three and 4. So we are working into this space here to create that cluster of 4. Okay, so I'll leave you to create your clusters and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So once you've created all of your clusters, your work should be looking similar to this, hopefully, where if you pull your work apart, you can see those crosses in the middle and clusters either side. So to finish this row, we're just going to do a double crochet to keep a nice straight edge like before. We are going to do it in the top chain of this chain 3. Now this is actually looking at the back side of it, so if you just flip your work over and count up, it's this chain here. So insert your hook under both pieces of that chain, and create your double crochet, and then you're going to chain 3 and turn your work for your next row. Okay, and then just like before, you can pause, rewind the video and go back to the crisscross row. It's worked exactly the same way, and then row 5 will be worked the same way as this cluster row, so you can carry on from there. So as promised, details of the scarf pattern. Now I have used a variegated chunky yarn to create this scarf, so I've built up the pattern in exactly the same way, row by row, with the 2-row repeat, and it changes colour as it goes up. Again, I used the chunky yarn, and I used 3 balls of chunky yarn to create this scarf. My scarf is 20 centimetres across by approximately 185-ish centimetres long, and I chained 31 just as I did in the tutorial video. So if you go away and create the scarf pattern, then please send me a picture, drop me a comment to let me know that you've made it, that you've tried the stitch, and if you're on Instagram then send me a picture. I'd love to catch up with you in DMs. See you soon.